All right, we are live. How are you doing?
Doing okay.
Happy launch day.
Yeah.
So,
Happy launch day to you too.
thank
Should
you.
reciprocate.
So, I think I'll start with kind of a rundown. I'm also like we've got a little bit of time cuz we don't have a lot of stuff to do. This is not our normal podcast where there's a specific topic and
Yeah.
stuff like that. We're celebrating the launch of this podcast, and in order to celebrate, we're going to do a few things. We're going to have a little bit of fun. A little bit of fun. Um, so, anyways, I'll just kind of lay out what we're doing and then we'll go from there. I need to adjust this though. I feel like I'm kind of leaning down a little bit. There we go. All right. I want to see what I can do to maybe get some folks in here. So I'm going to do this. All right. And I'll do the same thing here. Actually, that's already, let's see, that's from, it's,
From just now.
yeah. So, I mean, that's fine. That works. All right. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a giveaway. We've got 3 prizes, and this is really for anybody who is in attendance. We'll put your name into a thing and select a random winner of the first prize. And the first prize is, these are the prizes are from things that we've created, things that we're really proud of, that we sell on our website. Normally, we sell on our website, but we're going to give them away. So the first one is the Tough Nisi package. This is the first prize, so it's got everything. It's the Tough Nisi package. It's my documentary that I produced about 5 years ago now, I think, something
That's
like
been
that.
A while.
Yeah. It's the documentary I produced, and it's the 4K version. It includes behind the scenes content and also an album of original songs that were written by artists in our area specifically for the documentary. So that's pretty cool. There is my Zoom mini course. So I made a mini course showing people how to set up a shot kind of like this for their Zoom calls, so that they look more professional, and so that if you record your Zoom calls, let's say maybe you do Zoom calls for a podcast or interviews or something like that, you can capture quality versions of your video, and then I show you how to easily edit those and turn those into content that you can use for your platform, to grow an audience and attract an audience and stuff. So that's also included in the first prize. And probably the most valuable part of the first prize is the ebook package. It's a collection of books that Rachel has written. And we're going to, I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of have a little bit of back and forth with the winner, because she's written middle grade fantasy, poetry books, essay books. So she's got a variety of offerings, and so we kind of want to figure out, like, okay, what are, if the winner is someone who would be into middle grade fiction, fantasy, like, that's cool. But if they would be more into poetry, we want to know that so that they get what they want. All right, so that's the first prize. Second prize is the Tough Nisi package and the ebook package. And then the third prize is the ebook package. I just want people to have your books.
Okay.
So we'll do that. We'll do that probably at the end, something like that.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like there are 3 people watching right now. I don't know you're watching unless you comment. So if you comment wherever you're watching, if you comment and just say hi, then we can add you to the drawing for the prizes. So anywhere you're watching, just say hi. Now, if we don't get enough people to do the drawing, the recorded version of this is going to exist. People may watch it later, so I'll say the same thing. If you're watching this after the fact, go ahead and comment and say hi. There's a possibility that we could go ahead. We'll know by the end of the episode whether or not we're for sure going to do the drawing. But we're also, I think, we're going to go through, like we know at least 15 people who've listened to our podcast. So we're going to go find those people and we'll just, add them to the drawing. So one way or the other, we're going to give this stuff away.
Yeah.
All right. And we got our first comment. Michael Tolson says hi. Michael Tolson is my father. I'm not sure if it's breaking any giveaway rules. We'll see. Cody Sparks says, "Hey kids." And good to see you, Cody. Also good to see you, Dad. And then so that's going to happen near the end. We are also going to do a Q&A. That's going to be part of it. So if you have any questions for us, you can go ahead and add them in the chat, or you can do this other thing that is a part of what we're doing today, which is we created this thing called a Wonder Room. It's a room on the internet where we can actually chat face to face, kind of like Zoom, but it's a little bit more interactive and fun. You don't have to worry about Zoom like cutting you off after 40 minutes. So we'd love to chat with anybody who listens. And if you do have a question, you can ask it in there, or you can just pop in and say, hey, and we can have a little bit of a conversation.
And I will say, like, the questions, because I know I myself would be like, well, what kind of questions would I ask?
Mm-hmm.
But it can be about, creativity. It can be about, we could answer some parenting questions as best we could. We could answer the
experts,
the personal kidding. About, our own personal creative stuff. So if you have those questions, we're game.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an example, I've collected a few questions already. So like we have questions about how do you make a podcast? How do you come up with ideas? Another one is, what is the least favorite part of your creative process? I like that one a lot. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat, or I've got the Wonder Space open right now. So if you are, I'm going to paste this in here. I hope it works. So I just pasted in, if you're watching on YouTube, you should see a message with a link to the Wonder Space. I'm going to go on Facebook and I'm going to paste it there as well, just in case. You can click on that link. You don't need anything special. In fact, I think as long as you've got a browser on your device, that includes phones, iPads, whatever, you can click on this link and it'll take you to our Wonder Space, and you'll be able to chat with us. And it'll be fun and not weird. This is very experimental. I'm just like, I had the idea and Rachel was like, I don't know.
We'll see.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Sometimes you prove me wrong.
Sometimes.
It's very rare.
But the thing is, you never know unless you just do it take the risk, put it out there. So
I tend to be one of those who drags my feet about new technology and stuff. So that's just me.
all right, so I think we'll go ahead and get into it. And I'm kind of thinking that we'll just have it kind of open forum. So we'll go ahead and get into the Q&A topics. But if somebody does pop in, I'm watching The Wonder Room right now. So if you pop in, I will see you, and I'll interrupt.
Maybe people don't want to be seen.
Yeah,
That
and
could be what's going
that's
on.
fine too. That is, I mean, that's a thing.
Yeah,
I gotta say this. So you will be seen by us, but you will not be seen on the broadcast.
Yeah. So we would not be recording other people.
You will be heard on the broadcast,
just not seen.
so that's an important thing. Yeah, so you will be heard but not seen on the broadcast. We will be able to see you, but nobody else will. And it's because of the way I have it set up, because I'm a
Genius.
tech genius. That's right.
Okay.
Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get into the first question. This was actually a question. Parents are showing up today. My mom is interested in starting a podcast with me and my brother. There's something I know. Another thing. So it's something that she went to visit my brother recently, and they had a conversation about it. They were kind of thinking about the podcast that my brother and I had done together before. It's called Jump the Creek.
Y'all did only a few episodes, right?
We did a few episodes, but it was a lot of fun. I really like the angle we took with that. It was kind of telling those stories from the past, talking about some of the lessons we learned and maybe how we incorporate those lessons in the present with our children, and then kind of our hopes for the future. And we use the stories from the past as kind of an anchor point or a theme of what we discuss in the podcast. So, so it was a lot of fun. I think I would love to pick it up again. I think what my mom is wanting to do with my brother and I is a little bit different. So she posted a comment and was just talking about how I think the gist of it was just that it felt a little bit overwhelming, and
like starting a podcast at all.
Yeah, starting a podcast, and there's the technical side of it, which is really involved, but there's also the side of it that's like, well, what do we talk about, and how do we come up with ideas for topics and stuff like that? Who are we making this for? What do we want this just to be a thing we do for fun, or do we want to try to turn it into a business? If we're going to make it a business, how do we do that? So
I would say, though, before you even get started, I feel like one of the first questions to ask yourself is this, and this is a value for me. So I'm not sure that every person would have this kind of question for themselves, but it's really important for me, once I start something, I finish it. And not that a podcast is necessarily finished at any point, but consistency is very important to me. And so the first question I always ask myself before I start any new thing, like a podcast or, just any kind of thing with my creative partners, is, can I maintain the consistency this would need to be successful? And success, that's a determination everybody has to make for themselves. But for me, success is showing up and providing value in a consistent way. So I feel like before you even get into like technological stuff and topics, it's really coming down to, is this something that I can sustain, or am I just going to do a few episodes and that's that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. I want to respond to that. First, I'm going to address this comment from Michael, my dad.
Uh-oh.
So I did notice that when I try to click on the link from Facebook, Facebook has kind of a proxy browser that it uses that Wonder does not support. What you need to do is it should give you an option somewhere, maybe like the three dots, you can click on a link and there's an option to open it in the browser on your phone. And the browser on your phone, usually, like if it's an Android device, it's usually Chrome. If it's an iOS device, it's going to be Safari. Both of those, either one of those should support Wonder. Yeah, so that's something I learned when I was testing it out earlier. So technology. I mean, it's a cool idea. So far in implementation, I'd give it I'd give it a D. We're getting there though. We'll see. We'll see where we end up by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So I would say a step before the one that you shared, which I think is really important, is to define what success is. And I think that's kind of a broad way of answering a lot of little questions, like inside that step are a lot of little steps, like figuring out who the podcast is for, figuring out what you want to talk about, why you want to do a podcast in the first place. So, but defining success, for example, with this podcast, there's kind of there are two different types of success. So there's kind of the outcome that I want from the podcast, which is we have a wide listenership. I'm open to doing like having sponsors and stuff like that. I'm open to this being a type of income stream if it's a really good fit. So like if a sponsor comes along and they have nothing to do with the people that we're talking to, that wouldn't make any sense.
If New Balance came to me and was like, "Hey, I'm going to support your running habit and you can just have free shoes the rest of your life," I'd be like, "Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I'll talk about you on my show."
We have our price. So so yeah, but that's not really like one of my goals is I want to have a wide enough listenership that anything that we produce, whether it's books or if I produce a music album or if I make an online course or anything like that, I'm able to, we're able to talk about it on this podcast and kind of have a built-in audience to share those things with. And that to me, so I don't have a specific idea of like what that number is, but significant enough that there's some, like measurable result from sharing something on this podcast. Right now, like I could share any of the things that we currently have that we offer, and I wouldn't expect to have a big response from that. But another goal could be something more like I want to do this consistently. So once a week, I want to do this once a week and actually, publish and release the podcast episode. So not just the live stream for the next 2 years without fail. And we might miss a week here and there because we're on vacation or something like that. But that can be, and I think those kinds of goals are also really important and they kind of go hand in hand. So like when I think of building an audience, I think of things like consistency over time is really important. And so I would have that like goal that's, you don't really have any control over, but this other one we do. That's kind of how you get there.
Right.
So I'm sorry, this is turning into a long answer.
Yeah, it is.
But when it comes to the thing that my mom is interested in doing, it might be more like, well, the goal is just to have a standing like just a reason to get on the phone with each other and talk about these stories and kind of reminisce.
Yeah.
That could be like once a month,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so maybe it doesn't have anything to do with an audience, but it's like, oh, then we can kind of define what success is in another way and then go from there. I don't even know if we should get into the technical side of it
Yeah. I
because
don't know.
it's a lot,
It is
but
a
that
lot.
can be another thing.
But it doesn't have to be what we do.
Yeah.
People do podcasts all the time where they just use the voice recording on their phone, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it doesn't have to be complicated. We just want things to be a little step above. So,
Well, yeah. And the live stream, so like the reason we do it the way that we do is I really love interacting with people live. I feel like it gives an energy to the show that wouldn't otherwise be there. Um, so like my dream is for there to be, you know,
chat going on the whole time.
so many people listening that like there are always questions, like more questions than we can actually get to in an episode. And then out of that, like it would be a lot of fun to kind of build a community. So we're gonna see what happens. You know, I have no idea, but I feel like the key really is just continuing to show up, and then like doing other things along the way. That it's important to find ways to market it and get it in front of people and stuff like that. So, all right. So I will at this point. I'll take another opportunity to let you know we have it's called a Wonder Room. You can chat with us in there face to face. You won't be on camera, but people will be able to hear you. But you can chat with us, and that is open right now. The link should be in the comments or in the description wherever you're watching this. So feel free to pop in and say hey. Otherwise, we're going to keep working through the questions we have. So the next question is, what are you working on creatively right now?
A lot of things.
What can you talk about?
Well, I am working on a YA book, which is young adult, that is almost finished and is in really good shape, I think. So the next step is sending it to my agent, and she will get notes back to me, and I'll make one more pass on on the story, and then hopefully we can take it out on submission by the end of the summer. And I have some chapter books that are currently in process of, being with my agent, not with an editor yet. Excuse me. Chapter books are for kids like 5 to 7 or 6 to 8. They kind of go in those ranges.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. I'm working on the sequel to the book that will publish next summer, which is the first Magnificent Summer is the one that will publish in the summer. And then the sequel to that will be called The Second Magnificent Summer. So, and that's a middle grade for, the middle ages, like 8 to 12, can probably go up to 14.
Yeah.
So those things have a lot of my time. I'm doing a lot of stuff with my self-published stories too. I'm finishing up the last 2 Farendale books, which that series is a series of 20 books, and I've been writing on it since I think 2016. So I was gonna, the last 2 published this summer, and I was gonna maybe do like a little 6-year celebration kind of thing, like, hey, this has been going on for 6 years and I'm finally done with the series. And so
yeah, we should totally do that.
Exciting. Yeah. So, and then I have a scary story for middle grade kids that'll release in October. So
is that scary story, is that connected to something that you've already...
Yeah, it's a sequel to my book that published last year, which is called The Legend of Woman Hollering Creek.
The Legend of Woman Hollering Creek. You can get it at
All the bookstores.
yeah, all the online.
Yeah. I
Amazon.
guess it's not. Yeah.
But yeah, it's there. You can
on my website too.
And it's available in paperback and
hardcover, yeah.
Hardcover.
And ebook.
And ebook.
So that
not
stuff is
audiobook yet.
Like, yeah, not audio. Yeah, I really want to get into some audiobooks, but time is short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are all the things that I'm working on right now, madly trying to finish before the kids get out of school next week. So
awesome.
I do this. I work on like 6 projects at once.
So I'm at Podia, we're quite busy working on something that I can't really talk about yet.
Great.
But that's the culmination of all of that work really is going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So we're really excited, and it's I've been working a lot more collaboratively with the marketing team, and I love kind of the energy of trying to bounce ideas and like try different things out and see what works and what doesn't. And what's fun about that, and kind of ironic now lately, because we're like dealing with a lot of stuff with the schools, and they're a like collaborative group project based learning, and not everybody is
good at that.
Yeah, not everybody is like wired that way. So whereas I really enjoy it and I love working collaboratively, and then in other ways I do like having creative control over probably more just the stuff that's like my stuff. But I don't know, like I'm starting to rethink that a little bit too. I'm like, what ideas am I, because I've seen what happens when I take the ideas I have to the team and what they become. And I'm like, I wouldn't have gotten there, you know? So it's really interesting.
It's a fun thing to see. I mean, our brains are really amazing, and then we put them together with other people's brains, and it's like, oh wow, yeah, this is why Pixar has such great movies. And
yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like I think when we see movies, like I think about this a lot with the MCU. There are so many Easter eggs and callbacks and stuff like that. And it's easy to look at that and think, wow, like the creativity is off the charts. How in the world does anybody come up with this stuff? But yeah, that's it. It's because they're working collaboratively. People are bouncing ideas, and it's kind of like the thing we experienced with the twins when they were growing up. Like
they have a whole brain together.
They it's like they have 4 brains. Yeah. They were little escape artists, and it was like what one wouldn't come up with on their own, the other one would, and then they would share that intel
and help each other with their weaknesses, and
and it would spark ideas, and so I think there's something really powerful about that. Personally, I'm working on, I want to release an online course, probably targeted at people who are trying to make great video content for their brand, whether that's for, and I would use my work at Podia as a case study. So I've in 2 years, within 2 years of working for Podia, I grew the YouTube channel from about 500 subscribers to more than 20,000 subscribers. And that didn't happen by accident. It wasn't a fluke. There were some intentional things that I did to make that happen. And so like, I want to put together a course where I break that down and really help people. Um, and there are courses out there. So like the work that I need to do now is really figuring out what would differentiate.
Yeah, how can you be
Um,
different?
and like how can I make what I produce something that would actually, like, if you follow these steps, you should see results.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
I've
that's one
really
thing I
been
want to
wanting
do.
to do a course too. I just don't know what to do it about.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
there are so many, like, you're such an expert with writing, and there are so many, like, you could do this just whole big massive course about writing, or you could zoom in and focus on
yeah,
one specific aspect, and there would still be so much there because of how knowledgeable you are. So
it's really hard to
yeah.
narrow down and do stuff. I've thought about productivity too, but I don't know. We'll see. That may be forthcoming sometime this year.
All right. So uh, I think we've still got about 15 minutes before we need to sign off. So I'm gonna skip ahead to um, this one question that I really like is, how do you come up with ideas? What where do your ideas come from? Like, what do you have a process for that? Do they just like pop into your head? What How does that happen?
I I talk about this a lot with kids when I go visit schools, but I pretty much capture ideas all the time. So these ideas pop into my head and I never throw any of them away. Like I have a folder where I keep every single idea I have. Sometimes it's, two ideas about a book that is the same book. Sometimes it's like I have one line written on a piece of paper that just says story about a dog. And like, I don't know. I mean, there's something more specific under that story about it. Like they don't have titles or anything, but I try to capture every idea because you just never know when one will stick out more than the others,
Mm-hmm.
or your subconscious is like germinating some of these things. And then suddenly you have like this beautiful plant and it's like, hey, pay attention to me now. So I try not to let any of them go. But I think I find inspiration everywhere. Like I read a lot. I probably read between 12 and 15 books a month, maybe 10, between 10 and 15. So I get a lot of inspiration from books. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I watch with you on our dates. And sometimes things I see in shows will give me an idea. Um, the kids sometimes will give me ideas. I shared a story with some of the seventh graders I visited last week or the week before last, where Asa, our second son, was kind of skipping around in the kitchen. And he was like, I wonder what it would be like to live in a house with no roof. And
Mm-hmm.
so I already have the story written. I've never like gone back and done subsequent drafts. It's only in first draft form, but I have a story called The Home Without a Roof. So, you just never know when those little nuggets of inspiration will come to you. Sometimes it's a conversation with you or something somebody says, and I'm like, ooh, that could make, or a conversation I overhear because I'm super nosy and listen in on other people's conversations, and like I'll write it down and be like, this would be a great story to, or a great conversation to build a story around.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to always just have your eyes open for those things.
I was gonna say, I feel like there's kind of this posture that you have to take of like, or I don't, however you want to define it, but like just kind of saying,
Open-minded.
hey muse, I'm
Yeah.
open to whatever. And not that you're, because I feel like that you can take it too far where you're like, I gotta find an idea, and you're trying so hard that you're actually like blocking ideas from coming to you.
Yeah.
So there's almost kind of this passive surrender to and openness. It's like I'm just I'm not I'm not like, you know, going out there and trying to collect all the,
Cultivate idea.
I'm just
Yeah.
going to open the windows, and if I open the window an idea might fly in.
Or keep the window open.
Yeah. Yeah, just keep it open. The weather's nice.
The rain's not going to hurt you.
It really depends for me a lot on the situation. So, like doing the Tough Nisi documentary, it wasn't like, I was like, what should I do? And then I should do this
Yeah.
It was, I happened to run into my friend Nisi and found out that she was going to be doing the Tough Mudder, and that her friend Joanna was going to try to make some kind of a documentary out of it and stuff, but she was having a hard time. Asked me if I'd be willing to talk to her about it, and that ended up turning into so that was, I guess, in that sense, that was really somebody else's idea.
You stole it
originally.
Just
I didn't.
kidding.
I
Well, I think there's an element
picked up the reins
of serendipity too to some of these ideas. So,
but then I'll have at work, I need to make a video about imposter syndrome, and I can take that in a really practical direction. I can talk to the camera about imposter syndrome, and here are the top 5 things you can do to combat imposter syndrome. Or I can it just kind of popped into my head. What if I did something that was 2 different versions of myself? But that idea came from some content that I really enjoy watching, where other creators do that. They'll have conversations with their self, and the comedy that comes from that. And so that became kind of its own genre in a way of comedy. And so I was like, I was inspired by that. Yeah. And then there was when I wanted to make a Christmas video, and I was driving home from dropping the boys off at school, and I don't know if it came on the radio or if it was on our playlist, but an R&B song came on, and it was like, yes, I need to write a Christmas R&B song.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah,
So
but
it's just
as far
random
as
things.
as far as ideation, coming up with ideas for this podcast or for video topics that I make for Podia, I kind of have a process. It's not fleshed out enough, I think, that I could just spout it off here, but it has to do with understanding your audience and what they're looking for. Trying to think about the things that from it's really hard, because it's almost the same as when somebody asks you, what do you want to eat for dinner?
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you forget every restaurant that ever existed. You're like, oh, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Or, so you kind of have to think about your knowledge from an outside perspective and pick it apart a little bit, and think of it less in terms of a thing that and think of it more as a story of what you learned how to do from point A to point B, because people are on that same journey who are behind where you are. That's basically anytime we're talking about a topic on this podcast, or I'm talking about something on a video for Podia, all I'm really doing is I'm telling a story about things that I learned that helped me get to a destination that my audience wants to get to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, I think some, for the podcast and stuff, we have brainstorm sessions too. And I think those can be very helpful in idea generation to begin with.
Yeah.
So.
Just setting aside time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think we have time for one more. I guess we kind of do this rapid fire style.
Are you ever rapid fire though?
Okay, I promise I will be concise. I promise. Okay. What is your favorite part of the creative process?
Well, in a nutshell, I enjoy every part. Like every part is probably my favorite.
Okay.
No, I love the brainstorming. I love the
No, I,
first
I believe
draft. I
you.
love all of the subsequent drafts. So I do have a least favorite part though, which if
Okay,
we're gonna
what is your
so
least favorite
my
part?
least favorite part is the waiting and like I guess once other people get involved in the creative process, I don't work well with groups. I am not the
Mm-hmm.
the group project person. I do love getting feedback and especially when it like meshes with what I already my writer friends and I talk about this when we send books to our agents, we pretty much already know what's broken about it or what is, like what is the thing that needs to be rewritten or just adjusted. But we're hoping that they won't notice.
Yeah.
And so, because we don't want to have to do the work. So, that's probably my least favorite part of the process is when my agent hits it on a nutshell, like right where it needs to improve. But it's also exciting because then I'm like, yeah, okay, I do need to do the work. And so, yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I don't like the waiting and I don't like when I get feedback that doesn't feel right to me because
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever want to like be problematic to people.
Yeah.
So,
I think my favorite part of the creative process, if you're talking about, um, well, I think I can figure this out for like video or designing or anything like that is really editing. It's taking the raw materials that I've collected and actually turning it into something. Like that process of that um, is something that I really enjoy. I love editing, and part of what I love about editing is um, problem solving because sometimes it's like,
well, it's like a puzzle.
yeah,
You
yeah,
get to
it's
put a puzzle together.
yeah. My least favorite part is writing.
Yeah, he needs a
um,
writer.
yeah, I no, I need to just keep working on it and maybe eventually get a writer.
I guess I could also say my least favorite part is like my least favorite part would be writing the kind of stuff you write. So, like anything that's technical or marketing related is my least favorite part.
Yeah, I can see that.
I would much rather be creative.
All right, I'm going to bring one more question in. Um, it says, I started a YouTube channel and now I'm not so very into it.
Mm-hmm.
I relate to that right away.
Mm-hmm.
I started a creative thing. Um, I love creating the videos I create, but I have begun doing low content books on Amazon. I build websites for people occasionally, and now I've started a blog. My question is, how do you reconcile all your creativity to keep going? I have the window open, and so much keeps coming through.
Oh, that's probably a question for you because like
Yeah,
you love all the things.
yeah, and this is I'm at a loss. This is the last part of it. I'm at a loss for which things to give more of my energy to.
Mm-hmm. That's so you.
So this is something that like, and this is really more of a working theory than it is like this is what I've done and it's worked for me. But when I play it out in my head, it relieves a lot of that stress and anxiety. So
I wanna have an answer too, but you go ahead first.
yeah, so I would say like I think it's important to let ideas in. I had like the Calm Dad gaming idea.
I think we have a website for it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so what I realized like from that experience and several others is I need to have some kind of rule about because new ideas are fun. Um, New ideas are more fun than old ideas. And that's just the reality that we're dealing with as creatives. New ideas are always going to be more fun than old ideas. And the thing that the advantage that new ideas, the major advantage new ideas have over old ideas is that old ideas have they require investment, and you've done a few repetitions of it, you know what to expect, it's lost its novelty. There's the vision, like you are more aware of the distance between where you are with that idea and where you envisioned you wanted to be with that idea that made you excited about it in the first place. So then the new idea comes along and you get excited about where that idea could go, and you don't think about it, like you don't have to think about that distance. It's easy. It's so easy for me just to go out and buy a domain. I'm like, yeah, I'll buy a domain. It's so easy for me to set up a website. I'm like, yeah, I'll just set up a website real quick. But then like the when you do those things, eventually you reach that point where it's like, oh, okay, now the real work has to begin to actually take this to the place where I wanted it to go. And just about that time, another new idea comes in. And I'm not saying that you're no longer excited about the old thing. It's just much easier to feel excited about the new thing. I feel like all I've done is really just describe it. So I need to make rules for myself about like what I will and won't do with any given idea before I've done something that's harder and more tedious. So like, I'm not going to buy a domain before with this gaming thing, for example, I'm not going to buy a domain before I've recorded 10 episodes and I've seen what it feels like. Because if I had made that rule for myself, I never would have bought the domain because I haven't recorded a single episode for that idea. So I think those rules are important. And then I think another tool that you can use to kind of combat that feeling of like, oh, I'm not doing anything on any of these, or I'm not sure what to give my energy to, is if you have an idea and you think about like what is it about that idea that made you excited, like where you envisioned it going, and then think of like, okay, what's the minimum workload, what's the minimum scope of work to get me there. So for this podcast, for example, I'm thinking, okay, 2 years, weekly videos, and that's a long commitment. Maybe for something else, it could be like, okay, I'm gonna treat like if you're gonna do a blog, I'm just gonna write 10 articles over the next 10 weeks. And that's gonna be the scope of that project. And then like I'm done with it. I feel like I've satisfied the thing that drove me into that idea. And at that point I can reevaluate, is this something that I want to continue doing? I think defining, like having a finite, like, okay, it's just this number of episodes, or it's this number of blog posts, or, like the more you can define something, the easier it is to commit to it, especially if it's not like, I need to do this indefinitely and see what happens. Because that ambiguity, like it takes me out every time.
Yeah.
So.
And I was just going to say real briefly that a few years ago I was doing blogs. I was doing, I think it was weekly newsletters. So I would post like 4 or 5 blogs a week, and then do weekly newsletters and all of that. And just, I did it for about 2 years, and just really, we were also doing weekly YouTube, because I have a YouTube channel, and just really like felt burned out. And I think something that we have to do sometimes is give ourselves permission to quit, because we live in a time where, you know, seeing things through to the finish is kind of the revered mode of operation. But sometimes those things don't serve us as well. Like, I felt like it was stealing my creativity to continue doing that stuff every single week.
Yeah.
And so I had to come to a place where I was like, it's okay to stop doing this because my creativity can be better spent in this other place. And I think it's a little bit easier for me because I've always known since I was little that I wanted to be a fiction writer, you know, and a nonfiction writer. So it was never like these multiple things that I wanted to do. But you do see that with stories too. Like when I'm in the middle of writing a novel and I'm like 30,000 words in, and you get to that middle place that's just like so hard to continue. They call it the saggy middle. And then a new idea comes and you're like, oh, this would be a much better book, you know, because that new idea doesn't even have any words written on the paper yet. So of course it looks like it's going to be a good book. But you would never know if it's going to be a better book than the one you're currently writing on if you don't finish the one you're currently writing on. So that's kind of where, like, most of my story ideas feel urgent. Like I need to get to all of them right now. That's probably my biggest challenge, is figuring out which one am I going to work on next. You know, you hear me complain about this all the time because I'm like, all of them sound wonderful and I want to do them all, but you can't do them all. So I think it's paying attention to the things that are just important to you and what makes you feel. I always go back to this, like what makes you feel alive and excited. So, and sometimes like even the project that you're super excited about can feel hard, but you get through that if you continue doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I feel like that kind of creates this, like, I'm a big fan of, you know, the 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the 3 points here are like, make rules about what you will and won't do with new ideas to keep you from being distracted all the time, because
they're always coming,
and spending money that you shouldn't. So make rules. 2, and then I think this is actually vital for where this question is coming from, because this question I think has more to do with, like, I don't know what to prioritize. So I think figure out what the minimum viable version is of that idea and turn it into a project and say, okay, and let it have definition and scope, because then you can, when you see the definition and scope of something, it's a lot easier to figure out a priority. Like, okay, so this month I'm going to work on this project, and the month after that I'm going to work on this second project, and the month after that the third project. And then I think a great layer to put on top of all of that is give yourself permission to say, yeah, I did start working on this project, but I find myself just thinking about the next one constantly. Like, I feel my energy being pulled toward that. And I'm learning that I don't really actually care about this first idea.
Or if it feels like it, you know, makes you feel like you're dying or something to to crank out 4 blogs every week.
Yeah. So
I'd
it's
say
like,
stop.
Yeah, just, okay. Yeah. Give yourself permission to quit and just forget about all of that noise that says you got to see something through the, you know. So I hope that helps. That helps me a lot. Like, I need to do that with every project idea I have. And I've done that, I think, more intellectually, like as I've thought through my projects.
Yeah.
And it really helps relieve some of the mental load. But I feel like these kind of 3 tips,
we should do a podcast on it.
Yeah, can turn it into action where you actually do eventually end up getting to some of these ideas. So anyways.
All right.
All right, I think that's going to do it. We are going to hold off on the drawing. We have a few names in the pot, but we're going to do that at some point this week. And I will reach out either through DMs or somewhere or another. I will get a hold of you and let you know if and what you won. Um, I'm gonna say the wonder idea was a fun idea, but
It might have just been too complicated.
it's a little bit too complicated, and I think we're a little bit early.
Mm-hmm.
So
We could have a 1 year anniversary celebration
yeah,
in another year.
we're gonna do stuff like this every once in a while, where it's less of a show and more of like a celebration, community gathering type thing. So, all right, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the great questions, and really, yeah. So, Cody, Cody said, "Wonder was a fun idea until you said people might be able to hear me." So I have an idea. I'm going to leave it open. I don't know, because this is the thing. This is the thing about Wonder is like it's kind of like a virtual conference. So the other thing that I should have mentioned that I didn't is that like when the way Wonder works is you've got an avatar in a little circle and you drag your circle to someone else's circle, and that creates a room that people can talk to each other in. But the thing is, like, other people can drag their circle into that same room, and you might find yourself talking to a stranger.
Yeah.
So that's fun. If you're into that, I'm gonna leave it open for a few minutes. No pressure whatsoever.
You'll
But we're
take
gonna
off the
sign off.
recording.
There will be no more broadcast, so nobody's voice will be heard anywhere except for here on our computer
Yeah.
with us. All right, thank you, and we'll see you next time.